All right, we have Stephen G. Pope, the content automation, content everywhere, Gary V, Alex Formosi, teach you to be Gary V in 2 hours a week guy, right here. Um, it has been cool. I've gotten to talk with you before, just kind of in one-off conversations and little questions, and I'm super excited to have you on Simple but Hard today. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here as well, and it's been cool interacting with you and just kind of seeing what you're up to. And then we were just talking about how the internet's a cool place because you just meet a lot of people. You can meet a lot of other people if you're just networking and doing that thing, but there's way more people that you can meet online if you get yourself out there.
Yeah, man, it is wild. Literally, you could potentially hop on a Zoom call with anyone in the world, which is wild, which is what we're doing here today.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that the neat thing about it is like you can do a lot of filtering before that way and really connect with people that you want to talk to instead of just like having a lot of random conversations.
yeah, yeah, and being limited to who's around you physically too.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so simple but hard, right? And one of the core ideas is I used to think that success, there was some shortcut secret that would take you to this magical promised land of success, but truly it's about doing the simple but hard fundamentals really well and for a long period of time. And so let's dive in today, right? We'll talk about some of your previous business experience and how that's informed how you've built your new business kind of from the ground up. And what are those simple fundamentals that you are taking from the old business, applying here, and what's most important that you're focusing on right now?
Yeah. Yeah, so my previous business was a software business, and I grew that like I was just an engineer. I was doing good work, and just people when you're doing good work, people talk about you, and your business will thrive because of that. Um, and it's kind of interesting because like after I sold that business and then I started this next one, like the main thing that I was thinking about is like, well, number one, I'm a bit older right now. I didn't want it to take as long as that it took me the first time. And so I was like, how could I make it go a lot faster? So I was reading and researching a lot just in terms of like how pricing based off of results and also marketing and getting in front of new people. And so I really just started to master that piece of it, right? So I had a business idea that I wanted to um to do, but in order to get it launched, I needed to learn this marketing stuff. I needed to learn how to better price things and just make a lot more money. So I started just focusing in on those two different things, and it was really all about marketing. And I think the most interesting thing is that now that I have started a new business and I've gone through the process of figuring out what that is, like completely starting from scratch. Marketing and pricing and all those things are important, but uh, having a good product is something that ultimately is the simple but hard thing to do, right? Because like if you have a good product, the marketing will work on its own. All of these different things will be more impactful if you have it. Um, but like having a really good product is something that will ultimately grow your business the fastest.
So that's super interesting because I just saw a video from you and you were talking about how, a lot of people want to get to that perfect product state before they release it.
Right.
What's helped you be successful is you're willing to sell the thing that you learned yesterday,
Yeah.
even even if it leads to people being upset with like, hey, this wasn't exactly what I wanted or something like that. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit.
And I give the caveat that like I'm never like misleading anybody, but I am definitely running off of my own confidence that I can deliver and promise and but yeah, like you ultimately, so it's really interesting because like marketing when you're first starting out in a new product is really important because like you don't really have a product yet and you've got to get the message out there. So you have to start promoting something, be willing to sell something, and then ultimately transition as you learn to improving the product and being, how are people doing well? How are they failing? And the customers that were unhappy and left, like what is it? What is it about all these little moments that you had? And I think if you do it right and you're upfront, honest, and you're getting better and better at a good rate, like that's how you can kind of come out of that
Mm.
process with something that's good. And it's a fascinating process to go through. And then once you've done that, all of your marketing is going to be much stronger, partly because people are talking about you and bringing you people, but you've also gone through the process of like really learning what people want and really what they're telling you about the product.
Mm.
And that really becomes the marketing.
Mm.
So yeah, it's a really quite fascinating process to go through, because like you have to market it, you have to
Right.
get the message out there. And I think a lot of that early marketing is built off of like passion and just
Right.
interest and like energy almost. It's just like this energy that people can pick up on.
That's really interesting. That's so true, because you can tell in the videos of whether this thing has life in it, whether it's growing or whether it's just like they're just throwing it out there. How important would you say, like the energy, the vitality, like the desire to make it work is, both in growing the business and in making content and committing to it?
Yeah, I think those things go hand in hand, right? And that's why momentum is so important, because if you're having a success or something's changing, something's morphing, I think that process ultimately you're throwing off whatever that current energy is, you know. um and sometimes it is negative, and sometimes you're recovering from something, or maybe you're having a negative energy, so you invest more in something else to counteract that, to feed that process. Because I do think in the beginning of a product, there's this concept of early adopters, and there are some people that will only buy a product when it has the 20 testimonials and this and this, right? But there are those people that will pay and are interested in working with people that are just purely fascinated with something or interested in something, and they're willing to put their all into it. There's something exciting for people to buy into that.
Hmm.
So it's just like this stage of growth that I think is just super interesting with products. But yeah, that momentum, that energy, that authenticity, I guess, is important. And it's always important, of course. But I think in the early days, it's like when you have less to prove, then it's really important.
So let's go back a little bit to earlier in the conversation where we were talking about your previous business. You take a little bit of a gap after you sell it and you say, I need to learn about marketing and I need to learn about pricing. Talk about that. What were the big takeaways that you learned during that little season of like pause, learn, skill up before you launched your new company?
I mean, I think it was mostly just an aha moment that, number one, you didn't have to charge per hour. If you learn how to package something and help somebody go through a transformation, and it can get that transformation for someone, then ultimately they will pay you whatever the pain is associated with that product, right? So if you can help somebody get out of pain in a relatively short period of time, they will pay a higher premium for that. And if you learn how to package that and display it to people, then ultimately you can charge a lot for something that has somewhat to you become a commodity. Um, but you've packaged that commodity in such a way that it doesn't feel like one, right? It's like that analogy, like you can go to the grocery store, you can buy a head of lettuce and it's 99 cents, or you can buy the one that's in the bag. It's got everything sprinkled together, and now you're paying like $3.99, right? So how do you number one do that piece of it?
Interesting.
And then number two, and if you want to ask a question, and then number two, it's just like, how do you get that out there? Like, how do you capture people's attention? How do you tell a story to get them engaged? And then how do you get them to do something?
Hmm.
Because that, if you get those two things, then you've pretty much nailed it, right?
So that's fascinating too. Mason Cosby was one of my first guests on this show. And then I know that he just recently joined your community and he made that post and I commented on there. I was like, Steven, it's legit. Um, but he was saying that frameworks for telling stories and creating content that you had shared with him, whether in the community, again, talk about packaging up something to create a transformation, just absolutely blew his mind. And I know I've seen some of your videos recently, and it's about, hey, how can we how can we create great persuasive content that's like worth at least $5 for every clip that you see?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there is like formulas to kind of like write things out. I think as you use them over and over again, you stop to rely on them and you can kind of ebb and flow on your own. But yeah, it's like in the end, like content really works really well when it delivers a good aha moment to someone. Like sometimes people get a little bit too focused on all that how-to information. Like people want how-to information like literally when they want to go do something. And like that's not a large number of people, probably. Like a lot of people before they have ever interacted with you or your content or anything, they're not like waiting to spend the next weekend going through a bunch of how-to information, right? Like most people would rather get their problem solved without having to do anything. Like you just sitting on the couch and just flipping through the remote. So people do like how-to information, but what they really care more about is like, do you know where they want to go? Do you have like can you show some like expertise or some knowledge that you kind of understand that person and where they're at, right? Like, do you use the same language they do? These are all things that are helping build trust for them to even entertain the process of listening to you in the first place.
Mm.
And then displaying some empathy in terms of like, you are literally where they were, or you've helped a million people that where they were, right? So displaying some of that empathy and authority that you're an expert, and only then will they really listen to the how-to information. But they really don't care so much about that. Like that will then further solidify whether they want to work with you or not. But that's kind of how you have to think about it. You have to give somebody a specific action that's going to alleviate some pain they have, and develop the story such that they even believe that you're the one to give them that advice.
Mm. So as we wrap this up, 15 minutes goes quick, right? Tell us a little bit, what is the pain that you solve for in your company right now? And then I'd love to hear too, like what are some of the goals? What are some of the dreams that you're building towards right now?
Yeah. So what I found out through content is that people want to create it. They want to grow their business, but they feel like, right? So I didn't really get this. They feel like they're missing the system to do that. And what the system is actually kind of interesting. Once I started learning people that needed a system, what that system was to them is different for everyone, right? So like I started thinking it was because like a lot of people would come to me and say, you have a cool system. And I thought it was the automation, but it wasn't. It was like, how do you craft a story? How do you do this? So the main thing that I learned was just like through creating content that people were really looking for a system that they could plug in to just get going, because they felt like that was the missing link.
Mm.
I don't always agree with that, but that is the majority of what people thought they need.
Interesting.
So there is a difference also between what they really need and what they want. But what they wanted was a system. And so once I learned that, it was just like everything took off, because then all my marketing could all be around that one system or another, and then like for me, like I guess long term, like where I'm going from here is like I really want to make sure that the current product is giving people what they want. And then I see like a SaaS play on that, like building out software that would do it, which would make it even more accessible. Because I really am learning. I'm learning two important lessons about content. Number one, not only how to do it at scale, but also how to do it right, so it actually does something for your business. Whereas I think a lot of tools out there, they give you the capability of doing something, but whether you should be doing that, I don't know, right? Like maybe you shouldn't actually be doing that. Like there was a time when you reached out to me, you're like, hey, what should I be doing on my content? And I was like, maybe not doing that, even though that's what I sold, right? Because they're two different things.
Because it wasn't the right problem to solve for.
Right.
Yeah, that was such a big thing for me, because I was like, man, I would love to be able to track analytics across different platforms. The only way that I've seen that happen is through your Airtable stuff. And so I was like, I need to make this happen. And you were like, what's the exact problem that you're trying to solve for? And how important is that really to driving revenue? And I was like, you got me. Okay, I guess I focus on that right now.
which is kind of like, which is why I've like, I feel like I have to be honest about all those things.
Mhm.
So like if somebody comes to me and they're just really nerding out on the tech and they love it and they want it. That's why I built the content engine database, is you can just buy the tech. And if that's what you want, like, I'm not going to stop you. But if you were to stop and say, hey, is this the right time for that? Or, then it would be a slightly different conversation. And I still do want to make sure that people are making good content that's going to resonate, because if you do, like, it really will like change your business. Like you'll just develop an audience, and you'll be serving people, and people will be asking you all these questions, and you'll become an authority in the space. And that's a pretty cool process to go through, but it's only going to work if it's good content.
So, okay, last question. Would you say content is the holy grail per se of building a business? Obviously, product is too. You kind of got to
But I
have
just
some.
think they all go hand in hand. I think like what I've kind of realized is like the simple truth is that like marketing to me is actually just more of an entrepreneurial activity. It is the entrepreneurial process. Content is a part of that. Product is a part of that. So to me, I just like even when with computers, like nowadays, like in computers, there's all these different subgenres of things that you can do. Like you can be a programmer, front end, back end, systems, technology. But they're all, to me, when I was a kid, they were all the same thing. I had to do all of them to be successful. And that's the way it is for me with being an entrepreneur and content and product and marketing. To me, they're actually all one activity. And it's just like you're engaging with the marketplace, listening for feedback, and responding and improving. And you have to do that with all of those different pieces, right?
Mm. Well, I know there's that quote from Naval, or that tweet thread from Naval, that's like, learn how to build, learn how to sell, and you're deadly. And I gotta say, from what I have seen with you, you are absolutely deadly at both of them. So
That's cool. Yeah, I appreciate. I always do getting feedback from because like when I'm in the middle of it, I feel like it's like, oh crap, like I'm not good at this, or I'm not good at that. I'm failing here, failing there. So it is cool just to see somebody from the outside saying, hey, it seems like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
Cool, man. I appreciate that.
Okay, well, where can people find you if they want to learn more? What does that look like?
I think the best place to go is the community. It's a really cool place. There's a lot of people, and it's not just me. Like there's a bunch of other people that are interacting there and providing help. So go to academy.sgplabs.com, and then from there we can do a bunch of different things. But that's a good starter.
Well, Stephen, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. See you soon.